Can you see
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. Um, so one of the things that I like to kind of start with my presentations, and especially as of late, is that a lot of times we use the word, affordable housing, and we talk about that a lot, or you might hear that a lot in different realms. But a lot of times we don't really understand, what does that actually mean? What are we talking about when we talk about affordable housing? And so I always like to start with that kind of HUD definition, or what are we talking about when we're talking about an affordable dwelling or affordable housing? And HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, really define an affordable dwelling as one that a household can obtain for 30% or less of its income. So that's really the key when you're thinking about what makes a home affordable. It's affordable if a family is not forced to spend more than 30% of their income basically on their housing solution. So affordable dwellings can really be a single family home that's either rented or owned. It could be like an apartment or a condo that's rented or owned. And it could also include a transitional, housing option, as well as even a permanent dwelling. But really it's that affordability under 30% is really the key for what makes a home affordable for a family. And so when we think about the entire spectrum of all affordable housing options, Habitat really is kind of laserly focused down at the narrowest part on that single family home ownership piece. That's our mission focus. So when we think about, affordable rentals, and we're thinking about apartments and condos and all those kinds of things, when we think about Habitats, we're really kind of honing in on that home ownership and single family home ownership focus. Um, I don't know why it's not wanting to advance. Apologize.
We've all been there. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm like, I don't know why it's like advancing when I'm not sharing my screen, but it won't when I am sharing my screen. I have no idea why. Maybe we're gonna try this a different way. Hold on. I hope I don't have to keep going back and forth, but yeah. Okay. So why, so we think about home ownership, we think about affordable home ownership. Why is Habitat really focused on home ownership in the spectrum of affordable housing? And we really believe that families can truly transform their lives by having a home that they own, that they can afford. And there are lots of benefits to affordable home ownership, but some of them that I'd like to point out, really it's a catalyst for wealth building. And so there's a lot of statistics that show that families that are able to build wealth for generations, really a lot of times it starts, or that home ownership element is an important piece to all of that. We also see that it leads to better test scores and higher rates of high school graduation and college attendance in children that grow up in a home that their family owns. It promotes civic and social engagement. So there's a lot of proof to show too that once, if there's a neighborhood that's has a larger amount of families that are owning their homes versus renting their homes, you're going to have families that own their homes more involved in voting. You're going to have them more involved in, neighborhood associations and things going on in the community and things like that. So it definitely promotes that civic and social engagement as well. It also improves physical and mental health. Home improvement, solutions basically, are social determinants of health. So the fact that families, the quality of someone's home is one of 6 basically evidence-based high impact solutions for addressing social determinants of health, and that comes straight from the CDC. So the better the home environment is, the better the health of the individuals living in it. And the fact that it's owned by the family contributes to that as well. And then also for physical and mental health, the more the home is affordable to the family, the more resources they have to spend then on, nutritious food and healthcare. Overcrowding is limited when a family is able to achieve home ownership than in some of the rental situations that we see. Also, the more unstable the housing for families and children, the more that there are costs to that. So the unstable housing for families with children leads to an estimated $111 billion in increased health and educational costs over 10 years, and that's from the Children's Health Watch. And finally, sustainable homes reduce energy consumption and diminish the energy burden for low-income households, and that's a study as well to show that. Oh, there it's working now. Good. So with Habitat for Humanity, our vision and mission is the same locally as well as it is globally. So we really align to Habitat International's vision and mission, but our vision statement is a world where everyone has a decent place to live. Mission, seeking to put God's love into action. Our Iowa Heartland Habitat brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. So when we think about that vision, I think it's something that we can all agree with, that, everyone deserves a decent place to live. And our work locally here and around the world is to try to bring people together in the sense of building community, but not just the home structures, but really the neighborhoods, the communities of support, and through all of that, building hope for families. So a little bit about Habitat International. So folks may not know the difference. Habitat International is really the parent organization for all Habitat, affiliates around the world. But they don't do any of the building. All the building is done at the local level, and we are separate 501c3 organizations. So, but Habitat for Humanity International really grew from a place called Koinonia Farm, which is still in existence now outside of Americus, Georgia, just south of Atlanta. And it was founded by a farmer and biblical scholar named Clarence Jordan. And through his work and the work of Millard and Linda Fuller, they really developed this idea of partnership housing. And the idea of Koinonia Farm, if you ever get a chance to look it up or actually even go visit, it's a really neat place, and it was really designed to be a example for the rest of the country of how folks could come together, no matter your income level, no matter your race, no matter anything, and gender, and you would be able to live together in harmony on the farm, in community, and help each other. So everybody was welcome on the farm. And because it was in existence back in the 40s, during the civil rights movements in the 60s, and because it was so inclusive, the farm became a place that was the focus for some rioting and some different things. And a lot of the housing that had been built in the farm compound, or whatever you want to call it, was burned down. And so out of that, a lot of folks had need that had lived there, and they decided, Clarence and some other folks decided to create this idea of partnership housing. And it really evolved, and it was fully developed in 1976. But the idea is that those in need of adequate shelter, working side by side with volunteers, would have, homes, decent, affordable homes built for them. The houses we built at no profit, and the new homeowners' house payments would be combined with some no interest loans and created the Fund for Humanity, which was used then. The money from that fund would be used to build more homes. So this was what was the vision back in 1976 when it was first founded. And that's really still how Habitat works today in a lot of ways. But today, from 1976 to today, now Habitat is working in all 50 states in the United States and more than 70 countries. And there are more than 35 million people worldwide that have built or improved a place they call home through Habitat for Humanity and its network of affiliates. But so locally, Iowa Heartland Habitat for Humanity is an affiliate of Habitat International. We are our own 501c3 nonprofit. We were established in 1990 and over time have come now to serve 4 counties. So we serve Blackhawk, Bremer, Butler, and Buchanan counties. We are the second largest actual Habitat affiliate in the state of Iowa out of 28. So we are second in production to Des Moines. So we actually have a very robust affiliate here comparatively to other areas that are similar size to us. We actually produce quite a bit. Target neighborhoods for us, and I'm going to go into this in more detail later, include Church Row and Walnut and Waterloo. I'm going to explain more about that later. To date, we have completed 169 homes in just over 30 years for 177 families. So the difference there between the 169 structures or rehabs versus the 177 families, I will also explain as we go along. But we do occasionally get a house back if a family has to move for some reason and they offer it back to us, and we can recycle that home to a different family. And then we've had just a handful of foreclosures. So that kind of, with the recycling, that's a part of that as well. But like I said, I'll tell you more about that later. And then we've also completed 56 critical home repairs, and 53 of those have been in the last 4 years. So that's a brand new program for us, really. And so that's another way that we're making a significant impact in the community. So thinking about Waterloo, this is the Waterloo Community Foundation. So thinking about the impact in Waterloo, this is just a map of all the projects in Waterloo that we have done. 131 houses have been built or rehabbed for homebuyers in the last 30 plus years. So all the blue dots on there, and some of them are piled on top of each other, so you can't see all of them that are there, but those are all the areas that our work has touched in the Waterloo community. And then the red are all the critical home repairs. So again, those 53 in the last 4 years, you know, the majority of those have been done in Waterloo, and you can see kind of the layering there too in some of our target neighborhoods. So the stars there represent our 2 target neighborhoods. Walnut is on the north side there on the top, and then Church Row. So if you guys know Waterloo, you're familiar with those areas, but we'll talk in more detail about those as well. So for what do we build? So our houses, for new construction, we do have some parameters that Habitat International kind of asks us to stay within. Our 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses are typically 1,070 square feet. We can build houses up to 5 bedrooms and 2.5 baths, depending upon the family size. And there are HUD guidelines that we have to actually follow there. We do put basements in our houses every time we can do that. We've only had a couple lately where that wasn't, in Waverly actually, where that wasn't possible, but every time we can put a basement in, we do. And lately, in the last few years, we've been adding a single stall garage, either attached or detached, on every home that we've built. We've redesigned our houses back in 2014 to try to make them a little bit more neighborhood friendly. So as we're building in older neighborhoods around town and things, these are an example in the pictures there of some of the new designs that we've created, 2 stories and 1.5 stories, trying to fit in to the neighborhoods a little bit better so our houses don't stand out in what some could be perceived as a negative way. We do try to keep our houses volunteer friendly to build, which you can see with the steeper pitches of roofs and 2 stories and things. That's been a bit of a challenge, but we still do it, and the volunteers are still able to do a majority of the work. And then land that we get is acquired in a lot of different ways. So that's a question we get asked a lot, is how do you actually get land? You know, is it donated? Is it bought? It's all those things. So we have to purchase land sometimes, or houses. We get them as private donations. We get them through tax sale, through sheriff sale, and sometimes even from the city itself or the county will get a donation. That's new construction. So this is now the house's examples for our acquisition and rehab. So in addition to new construction for a family that's going to purchase a home from Habitat, we also will do an acquisition and rehab resale type model where we actually are acquiring a house that's standing. We'll do a full renovation on that home, and then basically it's like new in the end, and then the family purchases that home from us instead of new construction. So these are in varying sizes, everything from 1 to 5 bedrooms. The pictures on the side there are actual examples of rehabs that we've done. They're varying ages and conditions of the home. Since 2016, we've really been focusing on our target neighborhoods for rehab acquisitions like this, because there's a lot of homes that are either blighted or abandoned in the neighborhoods where we're building and focusing. And so we feel like sometimes even more impactful maybe than new construction, and even more cost effective actually sometimes than new construction, is to actually just take what's there and renovate it. So these are some examples of those. These projects can be simple to complex, everything from a quick flip kind of situation to a very complex renovation, as the pictures are on the screen there. These homes are sold outright as part of neighborhood revitalization sometimes as well. So as we're going into more of our neighborhood work and seeing the need, sometimes the appraised values, it's not going to be possible for houses to be saved or even built in some of the areas that are our target neighborhoods because the appraisals are so low. And so we've used our volunteers upfront cost and put it in the upfront cost to renovate some of the houses in the neighborhood. And then the idea would be to actually just sell them outright and recoup our investment and do it again with another house. So we've started to do a little bit of that as well as part of our neighborhood revitalization efforts. And again, these houses are acquired in many, many different ways from all the same ways that I talked about with new construction. So the partner families that we work with, so the families that are purchasing homes and having their first opportunity for home ownership through Habitat, they have incomes that fall between 30 and 80% of the average median income for the area in their that they're living in. So that's based on the county's guidelines. The target that we are looking at is 30 to 60% AMI, but we can go up to 80% if need be. The families range from single persons with no children to married couples with children. Everybody can apply. They have to demonstrate need the ability to pay their loan back to Habitat and a willingness to partner with us. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that too, but they have a huge partnership commitment with Habitat, and that's part of the model. We look at their debt to income ratio. We look at their credit report. We're not looking for a certain particular score, but there are certain things that we are watching on their credit to make sure that they would be a good candidate for homeownership and for purchasing and taking out a loan. And then they have to also demonstrate continual employment. So they need to show that they're stable in their employment. Right now, we have a waiting list of over 300 families for single family home ownership alone. And there really is a deep need for this service and this option for families in our community, because when you think about that affordable housing number that I gave you before, the 30%, right now there are 6,700 families in Blackhawk County alone that are spending more than 50% of their income on housing, and another 7,400 on top of that that are spending more than 30%. So we've got, a significant number, over 14,000 families that are spending, more than 30% of their income on their housing today. And our waiting list is 300 of those. So there's a great need for this work in our community. Our families, they have to commit to that partnership element of 300 hours of sweat equity. So what they do is, as part of this program and basically as their down payment for their mortgage, they contribute sweat equity hours. So they have to do 300 hours. They have to help another family build their house and work in our restore for at least 100 hours of those 300 before they get the opportunity to actually choose their home assignment. So they have to demonstrate that commitment up front. Then they build their own house and do more hours there, as well as then using hours on their home buyer education curriculum. So that list there for you, you can see all the classes that we have the families take. They take a couple of personal finance classes, a home maintenance, pride and property, so that's interior and exterior maintenance. They take an energy efficiency kind of green living class, being a good neighbor, sociologically focused class on what it means to be a neighbor and living in a neighborhood. Then they take a career counseling class, an estate planning class, and a mortgage and a separate insurance class. So the classes they take are extensive because these are all first-time home buyers, and we really want them to be successful and know what the commitment entails. Our families, they are not allowed to rent their home out while they're paying off their loan to Habitat. So this is supposed to be a home for them to stabilize their family and live in. It's not meant to be an income property, so they are expected to live there. They can't rent their home out. They have to pass criminal background on a sliding scale and sex offender checks ahead of time. They have to follow a strict delinquency policy that we have, including a cure at 45 days. So we have really strict delinquency rules and regulations there. We also reserve the right of repurchase of their home. So if they were going to sell for some reason, they have to offer the home to Habitat to purchase from them first. If we want to buy it and help another family move in, we can do that. Or they can sell it outright at that point. And it's really a successful program. So 85% of our buyers in 30 years of the 177 families we've served, 85% of them are still in their original homes today. And actually, we've had a 96% success rate in the sense that only 7 houses have gone into foreclosure out of 177 buyers, which is less than 4%. So it is a really successful program, and we see these families really do achieve that stability. That is really the goal with this program. And just a little bit about the impact on local children. These are kiddos actually in the families that we've served recently. They are 36% less likely to need government assistance in the future, and they're 116% more likely to graduate college if they've been brought up in one of our Habitat houses. Shifting gears to our volunteers. So a little bit about the volunteers. We couldn't do what we do without the volunteer teams. So we do have several regular teams that come out. We have the home buyers that are doing their sweat equity hours that contribute to time. We have Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday regular teams that come out. A lot of folks that are maybe retired and in the next phase of life and looking for something to continue to do to stay busy. We have our NAS builders, which is a group of builders from Nazareth Lutheran Church that are doing a whole project for us right now. Sean Chestnut is a new volunteer that's just decided to lead some teams on his own on a project also in the Walnut neighborhood. And then we have some AmeriCorps teams. We have the UNI Habitat chapter, and we do have some regular events, women build and some panel builds that are kind of regular volunteer opportunities for us. And then we have episodic teams, so corporations and businesses, community groups, social clubs, church groups, just individuals and families that want to come out with their family, and then schools will come out, once a year maybe or so on. And then we're forming new partnerships all the time. But lately, we formed a couple of new partnerships that are starting this year with Hawkeye Community College's We Build program. So they will be doing a house for us through their program. And then the Cedar Falls CAPS program is starting with us actually this fall as well. We run approximately 9 crews a week for building with volunteers, and that's prior to COVID. Lately, we've been running slightly less, but we're still hovering around that 9. We have Monday through Saturday opportunities available. Build days are typically from 8:30 to 3:30. And then we like our crew sizes to stay about 7 to 8 people, but we can accommodate smaller or larger if need be. We also have volunteer opportunities in our restore. So approximately 5 to 6 volunteer shifts are filled in our restore every day. That's a Tuesday through Saturday opportunity, 3 to 4 hour shifts in the morning or afternoon. And then we have folks that help with donation receiving or cashiering or just general help. And those volunteers are really crucial there to help us keep our overhead costs down in the store. So we're returning more to the mission. We also have some of those events that I was talking about. So Women Build, we have 20 to 25 teams of women that come out for an entire month during Women Build. We also have panel builds. So that's a big day where we build all the walls for a whole house in a single day, and we can accommodate 40 to 50 volunteers or so in those days. And then we have other like blitz days, so like a landscaping or neighborhood cleanup days. We can do 10 to 30 volunteers in a day there. And then we also have Global Village International builds, so where folks can go to other countries and help build habitat houses in other countries. But typically in a typical year, non-COVID, we usually are well over 20,000 hours a year in volunteer help. So a little bit about our neighborhoods. We are focusing our work right now in, when we say focused work, I'll kind of explain more of that as we go. But the 2 target neighborhoods that we are working in are Walnut Neighborhood and Church Row. So Walnut Neighborhood is really defined there on the map. You can see on the right side as the kind of south border there is Franklin Street, East 4th Street is the east border, Dane Street is the north border, and then Highway 63 or East Mullen there is on the west side. So that is what is defined as Walnut. And then Church Row is really hard to kind of see in that map, but it's, you know, Highway 63 and Washington Street there, you know, 4th and 5th Street area, all the way back to basically 6 Corners, and then back into the neighborhood from there to Highway 63 again. So when we talk about neighborhood revitalization, this is something where I was saying earlier, kind of the depth of habitat is very, very different than what folks kind of envision it is. So it's a lot more than just a single house here or there, a single family and volunteers helping to build. We've really expanded our approach, and this is on the national level and global level over the last decade plus, to include a much more holistic approach to the work that we're doing. And so when we talk about neighborhood revitalization, it's really based on asset-based development principles. So when we look at a neighborhood, we're looking at, it's not just housing solutions that a neighborhood may need to stabilize. It's really looking at, what does the neighborhood have? What are the assets in the neighborhood? How can we build off of those assets? And then looking at the challenges in the neighborhood, what does the neighborhood need to really have the ultimate outcome of a better quality of life for the folks that live there and work there and what have you. So asset-based starts with the assets. This framework, it's a little bit difficult to see, but the idea is that you're looking at the gifts and the dreams and the concern of the residents, the institutions, the folks that are there. You're looking there first. And you're saying, okay, pulling those folks together, what do we have that we can build on? What are our dreams for our neighborhood? And what are the concerns that are kind of preventing those dreams from being a reality? And then we really build out from there. So we want to start with building that sense of community. So getting residents and community associations, partners within the neighborhood together so that they feel connected and that they're supporting one another. Then we want to build some social cohesion from there. So that's the willingness and competency of residents and community associations and partners to work collaboratively and cooperatively together. And then we can get to collective action where residents and associations, partners, they're completing projects on advocacy, you know, driving work in the neighborhood, really coming from within and driving that work in the neighborhood. And then we see all of the different kind of the elements that basically would help with an improved quality of life. So there's different amenities. What are the challenges? What are the concerns of the neighborhood? Maybe they're missing amenities. Maybe they don't have, you know, grocery stores, pharmacies, you know, a lot of the things that, you know, that we really take for granted that when we do have them. What do they need? Maybe they need economic opportunities. Maybe they need access to employment and livable wages. Um, Education, are the kids prepared for the ability to succeed in life? How is the education in the area and access to good education? Health, is that a factor in lowering the quality of life in an area? What's the housing conditions? Are people feeling safe? What about transportation? Can they move about the neighborhood well? So we look at all of those things. So once we get the residents engaged and the community associations engaged and partnerships formed, if it really grows this way and kind of goes out from there, that's when it's going to be much more successful than if we just kind of from the outside, we're looking in and saying, well, the housing over there is, not in good shape. Let's go ahead and start fixing that. And somebody else was like, well, we need, a grocery store, so let's go do that. If we don't have it kind of building from within, those things may help for a time, but they're not going to really fully address the whole holistic need of an area. And so there's studies that would show that those won't be successful strategies in the long run. So this is the framework that we use in our asset-based neighborhood revitalization approach in our target neighborhoods. And we are at this table, so we aren't just providing housing solutions in these neighborhoods, we're doing all of this holistically. So in Walnut, for example, our partnership began in the Walnut neighborhood with what was already going on there. We were invited in 2016. So when we think about Walnut neighborhood, it's highlighted there in yellow for you. It is 17 blocks, square blocks adjacent to downtown Waterloo on the north side. It's approximately 85 properties. It's located in Census Tract 1 in Blackhawk County. And the statistics for Census Tract 1 are that 41.2% are living in poverty with a median income of $15,000 essentially. 55% are white, 32% Black, 5% Hispanic, and 8% other. There's 22% of the homes in this census tract are vacant and 68% are rentals. And there's a 42% transiency rate in this census tract. So where the families have moved from the previous year. So there's 42% essentially of the population is turning over in this area every year. It is this neighborhood is actually listed on the National Registry of Historic Places since all this work began. So the asset-based development outcomes in this neighborhood, so what the residents had engaged for years together and held some listening meetings in 2016 as to kind of going through that framework and what are the gift streams and concerns for our neighborhood? And out of those discussions, we really created some asset-based development outcomes, the first of which being housing. So the promotion and protection of fair, decent, affordable, mixed income, and historically preserved housing and residential development. So housing was one of the biggest concerns that the residents had identified as a problem in their neighborhood. Second was historic preservation. So the idea that this is a historic neighborhood, there's a lot of historic buildings, a lot of them also had already been torn down. So how do we save and protect what's still remaining and use those as assets for the neighborhood and the neat feel that the neighborhood has and could have. The third was an outcome was building that sense of community. So unity and neighborhood ties were strong, but they wanted to continue to strengthen those and continue to increase trust within the neighborhood within each other. And then the fourth one was economic opportunities, the importance of job creation, financial resources, for the families in and around the neighborhood. And then the fifth was transportation. So safe, affordable, accessible, being close to downtown and all the amenities. We wanted to make sure that it was safe for the folks that live there. So these were the things that the residents actually identified as assets and concerns in the neighborhood. And we were able to build our plan for the neighborhood really around these things. So outcomes in the neighborhood and process right now, on the housing side of things, that was the number one goal. Since 2017, we've made huge progress in the neighborhood. We've already secured 11 blighted and abandoned homes for rehab. 20 vacant lots have been acquired for new construction in the neighborhood. Remember, there's only 85 properties in there, so you can imagine the percentage here is pretty good. 13 owner-occupied critical home repairs have been completed. So that's where we're working with families to actually just repair their home that already own their home. So one of the first steps we made in the neighborhood was let's get with the existing, maybe low to modest income owner-occupants and make sure that their houses that are there, let's stabilize their houses with them. So we did a bunch of roofs, we've done plumbing, we've done windows, siding, all kinds of different things with the existing owners in the neighborhood. 7 single-family homes have already been completed. 6 of those have been sold. 5 additional single-family homes are in process right now, and 2 transitional homes have been secured for lease purchase or transitional housing options. So these are a couple of pictures and some of the families that we've sold houses to. So this was one of the rehabs we did early on. So we bought that one on a sheriff's sale. and we're able to completely renovate that and sell it to one of our Habitat families. And this is another full rehab that we did in the neighborhood. So this house was built in 1889 and was a full gut renovation on the inside. We bought this from an estate actually, and we're able to completely renovate it, keep the home, because again, that was the value of the families in the neighborhood, that we keep the history. And then we were able to sell that to a Habitat family as well. And that's the dedication ceremony there. Here's some pictures of some of the new construction completed in the neighborhood and in process. If you drive through the neighborhood, you'll be blown away by just all of the new things that are going on. This is more new construction. And within that 17 blocks, it's making quite a difference already, filling in, a lot of what was vacant and torn down. This is an example of a critical home repair with a gentleman named Craig. So this one's on East 4th Street, right next to the new teen center for the Boys and Girls Club. So you can see that, Craig had been there and was having a difficult time He was his family's home, and he was having a hard time taking care of all the different things that needed to. He's got a disability and has some physical limitations. And so he was really just overwhelmed by all the work that needed to be done. So you can see from the before and after just how much of an impact, just visually. But I think what was really key with Craig was just his hope was really renewed through this process too, and seeing all the volunteers that came out to help him with this. So the second thing on the historic preservation side of things, so since 2017, the neighborhood's been listed on the National Registry, as I said. 8 historic homes have been secured for restoration. 1 historic commercial building has been secured for development, and an historic church has also been secured for development in the neighborhood. So this is an example of a JSA project. So JSA is one of the partners in the coalition, and they do a lot of the downtown historic rehabs of old commercial buildings. And this is one of the first residential that they've done. So you can see the before there and the after. Maybe some of you actually were able to go through that property. It was just an amazing transformation. And when they're doing historic preservation, they're doing it fully. So all the windows are original. They're finding original siding to kind of feather in where the original siding might have been missing. They rebuilt the porches to be exact to the specifications of the original based on drawings. So this was an amazing project. And if you see the house next to it there in those pictures, that one is underway right now, and they're working on that one as well. These are both on East 3rd Street. This is an example of one of our historic preservation projects for rehab. So the house was in the top left there, and now here it is today, completed. This was all done by volunteers. We really tried to give a nod to the original design and the architecture, and make sure we were staying in line with that. And we're doing the one side by side next to it as well right now with that same volunteer core. And so it's not quite to the level of the JSA project, but we are definitely trying to keep, the look and feel of the house and preserve the history of these little cottages. And then this is Faith Temple Church, Walnut Baptist, has been secured in the neighborhood as well. So that third thing, a sense of community. So since August 2016, building on that sense of community, they have had listening meetings with residents. They've had 38 neighborhood association meetings, at least, national night out events. They do an annual Miracle of Marigold events where they plant marigolds on all the street corners in the neighborhood and have the residents help plant and then maintain and take care of those marigolds. For unity, they've had walnut tree little yard signs, painted yard signs that the youth in the neighborhood painted, and now they're little, you can see them dotted throughout the neighborhood as residents can put them in their yards. For beauty, they have annual cleanup days, and there's a tree plant underway in the neighborhood for planting trees along, East 4th Street and Franklin and throughout the neighborhood. There's a lot of studies that show that trees really add so much value in feeling a sense of home and warmth within a neighborhood, safety. And then other things, dedication ceremonies, backyard barbecues, picnics in the park attended by residents. A lot of building that sense of community has happened in the last few years. These are just a few pictures of some of those events kind of taking shape, but involving those residents, having people coming together is so key. Fourth one, economic opportunities. So focusing on job creation and increasing access to financial resources. Since 2017, 3 minority-owned small businesses have opened in the neighborhood. 1 minority-owned grocery store is under construction right now on the corner there, Franklin and 63. The Teen Girl Employment Program, TriPi, opened its storefront in the last few years in the neighborhood or adjacent to the neighborhood. And then employment programs, housing, financial education, mentoring programs And art programs are right now being considered, developed, and expanded in the neighborhood. And then even job opportunities have been created by Habitat for snow removal, lawn care, and demolition services for our work in the neighborhood. So we've hired residents in the neighborhood for those things that we've needed to spend money on in the neighborhood as well. So these are a few pictures of some of those store openings and logos. And the fifth thing, then, transportation. So focusing on safe, affordable, accessible ways to get to downtown, different amenities. So since 2017, Franklin Street reconstruction project has been under development. So we've been working with the city on ideas about how to reconstruct Franklin in the area when it's going to happen, how we make it more accessible for the folks to get across Franklin into downtown. Highway 63 has been redeveloped. East 4th Street's been redeveloped, and we're working on a tree plan for that. We've been advocating for sidewalk connectivity through the neighborhood. So we've heard residents talk about where there are pain points there and how the folks that live at Walnut Court Apartments can't get to the pharmacy and lots of those kinds of things. It's not safe. So we've been talking to the city and advocating for that. And then a new parking lot has been completed for the senior apartments. That's a lot safer and more convenient for the folks that are living there. So this is just a draft of kind of some of the work with Vanderwall and how we're kind of working on street improvements and things like that, making it be a little bit of a better feel in the neighborhood. So future revitalization in Church Row, so that's Walnut, and I know I'm kind of going through all this fast. I want to be, respectful of time. So, but Walnut is in process, and things are moving really well there, and we are also, shifting our focus, not shifting, but adding in Church Row. As well as a focus area for us. So a few facts about Church Row. It's 0.5 square miles adjacent to southern downtown Waterloo. So a lot of you are very familiar with this area. There's approximately, though, 1,450 properties in Church Row versus the 85 in Walnut. So it's 6.5 times the size of Walnut. It's huge. In this neighborhood, so this neighborhood is all of Census Tract 3. So if you look up Census Tract 3 in the statistics, that is all of Church Row, and all of Church Row is Census Tract 3. So 26.4% of the folks living in Church Row are living in poverty with a median household income of $29,000. A little bit more diversity in Church Row. So 51% white, 18% Black, 10% Hispanic, 19% Asian, 3% other. 17% of the 1,400 properties in Church Row are vacant, but 79% of them in Church Row are rentals, which is a huge, staggering statistic. And then the good news, as I guess, if there's going to be that many that are rentals, the transiency rate is 23.6%, which just feels like a lot. But when you think about rentals in general, kind of having a much higher transiency rate anyway, it's actually, tells a story that people are living in Church Row renting, but they're not necessarily always moving right away either, which could be a good sign for the future. Another couple of facts and figures about Church Row. 7% of the properties in Church Row lack complete kitchen facilities. 62% of the homes in Church Row are over 81 years old. So well over half of the houses in Church Row are over 81 years old. The median owner-occupied home value is $73,900 in Church Row. For all the ones that are owner-occupied, the median value of those houses is only $73,900, which is 54% of the Blackhawk County median home value. 60% of the individuals that are in poverty in Church Row are females. 79% of the families in poverty are led by single mothers versus 0% that are led by single fathers. 58% of the people who rent in Church Row are cost burdens. So 58% of the people renting in Church Row are paying over 30% of their income on rent. So the rentals, there's 79% of rentals, and the majority of those are not even affordable for families that are living there. So what do these statistics say about Church Row? It says that Church Row's stability has been faltering by a distressed housing market. It says that Church Row has had a difficulty reliably attracting replacement owner occupants for decades. Church Row suffers from significant appraisal gaps and can't generate home values that support quality maintenance. Church Row can't repel irresponsible investors due to the weak real estate market it has had for decades. And it suffers to maintain engaged residents, and it can't deliver appropriate home equity to households and revenue to the city. So these are not good news. This is not good. So the important thing is that we have to really act now. We can't really let any more time pass. And it's an example too of how prevention is so key, that if things, maybe we could have done different things, or we're seeing some of this issue happening when maybe Church Row wasn't in this level of distress, it would have been probably a lot less expensive of solutions than we're going to have to employ now. So next steps right now in Church Row, we're working on building resident engagement. We're convening a representative coalition of residents, city reps, businesses, nonprofit orgs, and other partners, and Habitat is taking a role as convener there in the neighborhood. We have a staff member that's working on building that resident engagement directly in Church Row. And the idea would be to develop and implement a neighborhood-driven, asset-based plan for revitalizing Church Row with innovative ideas. Anticipated outcomes would be building that sense of community and identity in the neighborhood, building social cohesion through collaboration, advocacy and collective action in the neighborhood, expanding programming and opportunities to reverse housing and economic disparities, and then just more amenities that'll be necessary to improve the quality of life in Church Row. So a few final things about Habitat in general. Our restore, I don't ever want to fail to mention the restore. We opened our Hammond Avenue location in Waterloo on October 31st, 2015. So we are a retail donation and home improvement center. So if you haven't been over to the restore, I encourage you to do that. They're open Tuesday through Saturday, 9:30 to 5:30, Tuesday through Friday, and then 9:30 to 2:30 on Saturdays right now because of COVID. They are really just a fundraising arm of Iowa Heartland Habitat. So all of the proceeds from the store go back to help fund our mission locally. We try to keep our staff and overhead really low there, so we have more mission money coming back, but we have 6 paid employees. And then we have 115 volunteer shifts that are filled every month through just volunteer support, which really, again, helps us to keep those costs of running the store down. Fiscal 20, our sales per square foot was $62.19. And that was even, with a horrible fourth quarter for us, which was just this COVID time. Our fiscal year is done June 30. So the goal on a normal year is $40 to $50 a square foot. So we're actually doing pretty well there in the store, even with a COVID year. Our average daily donations are 36 donations a day, and that's pickups and drop-offs. Lifetime sales through January 2021 was just under $3 million in total sales from 2015. And the lifetime mission support then from 2015 has been $876,000 that the store has returned to our local mission, helping fund what we're doing here locally. And last, before questions, I just want to make sure everybody knows that our podcast is out now. So we've just started a podcast, trying to be creative with a tighter budget this year, not sure about a lot of COVID things. So we have launched a podcast. You can find it on our website there, or any of the platforms that you listen to podcasts on, and it's called Bringing Down the House. And we are really just trying to touch on really important issues around housing and, we have home buyer interviews, the process of applying. We talk about redlining. We talk about lots of different things going on with housing in general. And we also like to have a little bit of fun. We have housing trivia as part of it and all kinds of things. So we encourage you guys to check that out as well. But I would love, sorry, that's a whole lot of information in 45 minutes, but I would absolutely love to take questions if you guys have them. And I'm going to stop sharing.
And Allie, I'm going to start off because you gave a lot of great information, and you, I think, gave us more education about Habitat than I ever thought that you guys were accomplishing. And I just want to say thank you for that. But my question is that you said you had a waiting list of 300 people. How many years is that if you calculate that out?
Yeah, it's a lot. We would never get to all those. So we build right now, our pace is about 8 to 10 single family homeownership opportunities a year through our traditional building programs. So it would take 30 years, another 30 years to get to all those families. So we are really working on innovation and trying to build out some new programming that would help families on that list work toward home ownership, where we wouldn't end up actually build the house or provide the loan, but where they would actually then be able to purchase a home through conventional means. So we're starting a case management program partnership with a local partner. Should be launching in the next month or so, where we're going to hope to work in the first year pilot a project with maybe at least 10 to 15 additional families, where they would actually work toward qualifying for a home loan and being able to find a good quality home that they could afford. So that would essentially be able to double our impact and hopefully just continue to grow that program, even larger and larger.
Excellent. My next question is then, how do you advertise, or how would one find out about Habitat and to be able to get onto the list?
So our website is webuildhabitat.org, and there's information about applying that's available there. We get a lot of referrals too from families that have been in the program in the past. Will refer others to us, but our website is probably the best place to go.
Okay. I'm gonna open it up to the rest of the members on the Zoom meeting. Any questions for?
I feel kind of embarrassed. I feel like I didn't know as much as I thought I did about it. So thank you for that. That was really great. I have a couple of questions. One of them is, I was under the impression that most of the homes are given to the families for free, but it sounds like can you explain the cost part to a family that's getting it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. No, the houses are not free. So what we do is when the house, the sales price of the home to the family is always the appraised value of the home. So I'll give you an example. So let's say one of the houses we're just selling next week, actually in Walnut neighborhood, the house appraised for 130,000. That is technically the sales price to the family, and their primary mortgage amount though will be based on their affordability. So when we can get them down payment assistance and things like that, sometimes we can lower that amount, but regardless, it's always based on their affordability. So we will not charge the family for their total mortgage payment, which includes their principal, their escrow, just like any other mortgage. Their total mortgage payment cannot exceed 29% of their gross monthly income. And that's how we make sure that it remains affordable to the family. So if their affordability doesn't allow for them to pay for the entire, sales price of the home through their mortgage, then we'll try to get down payment assistance for them, or Habitat will put in a silent second mortgage that covers that gap, so that mortgage will exist then the entire length of the first. It protects them from predatory lending and preserves that in there, but it is forgivable if they would stay in the home for the total time that they're paying off their first loan to Habitat. So the pricing structure is a little confusing, and they do absolutely take out a mortgage. Their lender is Habitat, unless they're in one of our rural areas, and we will use a USDA subsidized loan product with an interest rate. And our rural families have a mortgage through USDA typically. But if they have a mortgage through us, a lot of times, whatever their affordability is where we start, considering their taxes and insurance and everything else. And then we can adjust the term. So our loans are 0% interest, and then that helps to keep it affordable for the family as well. So some of the families are paying a 20-year note, some are paying a 30-year note. We don't go over 30 years in their mortgage.
My other question is, I know I've seen it online a lot and I've read it in other communities that's happening, like those little tiny homes, for example, having those, assembled for, like, let's say veterans or homeless. Have we thought about that? Or I guess your thoughts on it? I don't know. I've seen it in the media, I guess.
Yeah, I'll be 100% honest. I don't know that I'm totally sold on that idea. I think it could be valuable. I think when we think about the families that we serve, the large majority of them have at least one child, if not two, and a tiny home just wouldn't be a possibility for our families for the long term. But I do think there are some ideas out there. I've definitely heard on that whole thing with folks that are maybe homeless or single or what have you, that definitely could be beneficial. And just thinking on our area too, being in Iowa and with winters and things like that, not having a lot of outdoor space that you can always use and expand to, when folks are needing to be kind of like just bundled up in the cold. I'm not sure if it's perfect for our area, as it might be useful in other places, but I definitely think that there's potential there, depending upon the situation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you choose the families? Is it like first come, first serve, or do you have priority areas for who's up next?
Yeah, it's definitely first come, first serve in the sense of getting on the list. And then once we start working through the list, when we have a spot open up, we'll start reviewing their, information. And then it's based on, all the just criteria that are the same criteria for everyone. So based on, they have to meet the 3 tests. Basically, do they have demonstrated need for better housing or more adequate housing? They have the ability to pay back a loan to Habitat? What's their affordability? And then do they have that continual employment? So once we kind of vet all of that out, we actually have to have a qualified mortgage loan originator on our staff. We have to meet, federal and state guidelines around those kinds of things, mortgage lending laws and all of that. And then we have a team of qualified mortgage loan originators that are on a committee that review all the applications, just like a financial institution would in that sense. So yeah, it really does start with first come, first serve, and then it's based on them qualifying through our process at that point.
You're muted, Mickey.
Let's see, Brian. Oh yeah, I was gonna say Brian had put a question in the chat too, but I'll take the other one first, then we'll go to Brian's.
Okay, my question is, I have 2. One, do you use the same targeted program in the other counties that you're currently serving?
We don't like the target neighborhood approach.
Yes.
Yeah, we have not seen that as a need quite the same that it would be in Waterloo. We aren't opposed to that idea. It just hasn't been something exactly the same way that we've really seen as a need. We do have one development that happened just by happenstance that we are still working on, actually south of Waverly. It's where the old Air Force Base was, south of Waverly. That we have several houses around the horseshoe on Walnut Court out there that we were able to just basically acquire back in 2006. We acquired all of that land. And because of that, we've kind of done some concentrated building out there. But it's not the holistic kind of neighborhood approach, like what I explained here. But again, it's more probably just need-based that we haven't done that. There's a greater need for it here.
Okay. And my second question is, you talked about renovating the church in the Walnut neighborhood. What is going to be what are you going to use that for?
Yeah, so Habitat really kind of just helped in that sense of being a conduit. So we had the opportunity to just acquire the church from a tax sale investor, to put it back into the hands of the neighborhood, essentially to help determine what's going to happen to that building. So we are just kind of in the middle of it right now. Not really. There's still some ideas that are kind of taking shape as to what could be a potential use for that space, but we won't be involved exactly in that development. So more to come from that probably in the next year or so. But the idea would be preserving the church buildings, the structure itself, because it's very iconic to the neighborhood and the community, but also using it as a space that could be beneficial to the community and helping to strengthen and revitalize the area.
Excellent.
So Brian had asked what are our biggest hurdles. It's cheap to say funding because that's whatever, but I think the hard part is it comes down to that. What this work is, and any work that a nonprofit does is expensive. It takes a lot of resources to do the work that we do, and especially compared to the need. So we could do more the more that we have, like we can scale and we could serve more families, but also in addition to that, it's staying up on all the education that's needed to be experts and try to be experts in this field of housing, and all the innovative solutions that are really out there, that we're always trying to push ourselves to be more innovative and try to spread the resources that we have farther and farther and farther, and try to be more efficient as much as we can. So trying to be innovative, trying to learn and educate ourselves on topics relating to this all the time, and just trying to be able to do more. That's what we're always feeling a push.
Okay. My last question is, and it's for all of us, if we're interested in creating a team or joining a team, what do we do to make that happen?
Yeah, so I would definitely love that. You could go to, again, our website, webuildhabitat.org. And there's a volunteer page and can give you all the information about getting a team signed up or just coming out as an individual as well. So individual opportunities, you can actually go ahead and sign up right through the website. And then for teams, you just contact Mandy in our office, but that path you can get to through the website.
And being that masters of time management, we're really close to that 12 o'clock hour. So I want to thank Allie for her presentation. And once again, I want to remind you, these Waterloo, Windows on Waterloo is an opportunity for us to learn. And Allie, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I thought I knew a lot about Habitat. I even served on teams, but I didn't know all of this information. And I think that's what we want to reach out to each other, because truly, the more bridges we can build with each other, the better the outcome. And I would like to thank everybody for this opportunity to log on to our Zoom meeting so you can learn more about that. And we will have another one next month, and we will go from there. And I would like to say to Allie, thanks again for a very informative presentation, and you rock, girl. Even though I know you, but you still rock.
Thanks.
Everybody, you guys have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. And everybody have a great day and stay safe.